Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Music Weekly. This is the show where I give you guys the top 5 prog headlines for the week, give you guys some singles to check out, and give you updates on the channel and what's going on here on Nathan on Shuffle. So today is June 24th, 2023, and I've got some interesting headlines for you guys. I hope you're excited for some of the news today. I think there's some big things happening in the prog world. First of all, if you haven't subscribed yet, I always encourage everyone to subscribe. A large portion of my viewers apparently are not subscribed to the channel, so it'd be really helpful if some of you out there could subscribe and help me garner interest in what shows are working and just help to build the channel in general. So really appreciate the support. Likes and comments are also much appreciated. It's all really important to the channel, as well as clicking the bell for notifications and all of that stuff as well. So but getting into the prog headlines for the week, the first thing I usually like to talk about is new releases that are coming out, and the first one I want to talk about is the Chronicles of Father Robin and the album The Songs and Tales of Eroia. This is a Norwegian prog band, almost a supergroup of sorts, consisting of members from the bands Wobbler, Tusmork, George Joe, and the Samuel Jackson 5, so some notable prog bands in that realm if you're into that Norwegian prog scene. They released like this big 3 LP box set on vinyl. I believe this album was like crowdfunded, and so this early release is basically just for this vinyl box set. It's a triple album. There's a lot of music. It's a big concept album and story. Really 30 years in the making of this big cohesive album with 18 songs based in an archaic alternate world for over a period of 3 decades. So it's a big project, and it's really exciting. It only came to my attention recently, and I know Scott from the Prog Corner is going to have a full-on review of this stuff soon, so I encourage you to check out his channel when that drops. But for now, it just sounds like some really exciting stuff in that lane. So it's somewhat of a release, but the wide release seems to be forthcoming later down the line. In fact, it looks like the first album, which I believe is just the first of the 3 triple album set, is Book 1. It's going to be released on September 15th on Charisma Records, and the single Elysian Fields has been released this weekend, so you can go check that out. That'll definitely be on the prog singles list. So some really cool, interesting stuff, and it sounds really inspired and great music, great folky, symphonic prog stylings, just in that classic mold of Wobbler and bands like that. So should be a really fun time and one to really look for and check out when it drops. And if you're so inclined, you could get that big multicolored box set that just looks really cool and really nice and seems like a great set for this album. Another album that came out this weekend that I'm interested in, that I've been enjoying a lot, is the Anchoret, and the album title, It All Began With Loneliness. This is a progressive metal project, more on the heavier end of the spectrum, so if you're not into the heavy side, the metal side, this probably isn't for you, but to me, it didn't veer too far into that, because I'm not into the extreme metal either, but I felt like it really settled in a good place, where it's heavy and intense, but there's a lot of progginess and jazziness and other things in the mix to give it variety and to make it not so over the top, hit you over the head heavy. But it's just a really great debut album from a really cool, promising prog rock group, and I wanted to point attention towards it. It's very likely that it could be featured as a spotlight on the channel at some point in the near future, but I have a lot of albums in my queue, so it's hard to say if and when it'll be featured here, but I wanted to at least put that out there. And what's interesting to me is on the album, it lists Andy Tillison as playing keyboards and synthesizers, so a really cool inclusion by one of my favorite musicians from The Tangent. So this is a cool project. Vocals by Sylvain Auclair, drums by James Christopher Norrell, guitar and lead guitar by Leo Estalias, and bass by Eduard Levitsky. So it should be a cool album to check out if you're interested, mixing fusion sax, flute solos, mellotron vibes, and heavy riffs. It's a really cool, heavier album that I think many could enjoy. Item number 2, I mentioned a couple weeks ago a lot of Neal Morse related news, and I sort of gave it away a little bit that this was coming, but the official announcement is in. Neal Morse announced his new prog rock concept album, The Dreamer, Joseph Part 1, to be released in August 11th, to be more specific, on Frontier Records. Really gonna be in the same lane as Jesus Christ the Exorcist, I believe, with a lot of guest vocalists and a lot of more of that musical type style that he does sometimes, rather than the pure prog concept albums he does with like Neal Morse Band and Transatlantic and such. But he is billing it as a prog album, so it seems like it's going to lean more into the prog style than perhaps Jesus Christ the Exorcist did. But I think you can kind of get an idea, if you're familiar with his catalog, of where it might sit by comparing it to Jesus Christ the Exorcist, which I think is a similar theme. So, of course, this tells the classic story of Joseph, the one with the coat of many colors, and it has guests such as Steve Morse, Eric Gillette, Ted Leonard, Matt Smith, Will Morse, Talon David, and Jake Livgren. Like I said, a bunch of guest singers, some guest guitarists as well. The core base of the band is not quite the same as Neal Morse Band. There's a couple other musicians on this, maybe local musicians that Neal is familiar with. So, but they have a video out for the track Like a Wall. So if you want to check out what this sounds like, the video starts off with a really cool overture and then leads into the song proper. So it's a really fun track, maybe kind of a goofy video, but it's a fun time, and I'm excited for this album. I was a little bit concerned because Jesus Christ the Exorcist is probably my least favorite Neal project that's come out in recent years, so I was worried this is going to be more like that and it's not going to be for me. But hearing the single and hearing the press release and that it's more considered a prog rock concept album rather than a musical rock opera kind of thing, I'm interested, and I'll definitely give it a listen, and I'll definitely love it because it's Neal Morse and I'm a massive fan. But whether it sits towards the top of his output with Neal Morse Band and Transatlantic and solo and Spock's, that's yet to be seen, but I'm excited for listening to the album. It's available for pre-order on CD and also on vinyl. There's a special edition vinyl on Radiant Records site, brick orange vinyl, which is the one I pre-ordered. So a lot of really cool stuff to look forward to with Neal Morse going on there. I also wanted to talk about some Porcupine Tree news that happened. First of all, on the more positive end of the spectrum, it seems like they've basically confirmed that there's going to be a live release from them later this year. I've been hearing rumors of that. I believe they've said it in interviews and such. And so there isn't an official title or release date or anything like that. So it may get moved around. Right now it's very speculative, but it seems like that's the plan, is to release a Porcupine Tree live album by the end of the year. The more negative side of the news, unfortunately, the Porcupine Tree touring bassist they've had, Nate Navarro, I believe is his name, unfortunately had to leave their tour that they're on. They're doing some festival dates, I believe, mostly in Europe. And he had to leave the tour due to a family crisis, which is very, very unfortunate. But they've decided to continue forward with basically bass backing tracks playing in the background while they still carry forward playing the music live. And apparently there was some kind of fan backlash to this idea. A lot of people don't like the idea of backing tracks, wish that like they could bring in a new bass player to replace him or something like that. And this backlash even caused Randy McStein, who's also touring with Porcupine Tree, to give a statement that he was unhappy with the fan response and that this was a very delicate situation and people should be more accepting of the situation and more sympathetic to Nate Navarro and his unfortunate crisis at this time, which I think is a good statement that he made. And I think it's something to consider, that, a lot of people feel a little bit of entitlement of like, oh, well, they should have this figured out and I deserve to see a live bassist in my show, but circumstances happen and it's just an unfortunate thing. And I think they're probably moving forward with the best solution possible. It's hard to imagine that they could just rustle up a bassist last minute like this. I believe they only have some few festival shows. I'm not sure there's even a lot of dates still left on their calendar, in fact, for this tour. So makes sense that they're doing this way. And I know it's unfortunate for people attending that they don't get the live bassist and that feel, of course you can't really substitute a live musician for backing tracks. It's hard to pull off that way and make it as exciting and and cool as it is with a live musician. But, they're carrying forward the best they can, and I think this is a better option than just canceling the tour outright, right? So that's somewhat of the news that I've been hearing about in the Porcupine Tree camp that I wanted to put out there. Of course, Steven Wilson is releasing his solo album soon, which is getting a lot of buzz, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of news coming up on that, called the Harmony Codex, which I believe is rumored to come out in September, but I don't think that's an official release date as of yet, but I'm guessing there will be an announcement for it in the next month or so, is my guess. Item number 4, Derek Sherinian and Simon Phillips are releasing a live album, Sherinian Phillips Live. This is coming out on Inside Out Records. Derek Sherinian released an album called The Phoenix in 2020. That was a really strong album that a lot of people really enjoyed. Really cool instrumental playing, some jazz fusion type stuff sprinkled with some, prog metal and just true progressive rock. Simon Phillips is an incredible drummer who really has a lot of experience in this sort of vein and music genre, so they performed live, and this set is about to be released. It's going to be a cool release. It seems like it's due out on August 25th, so should be really cool. Joining them are fellow creatives Ron Bumblefoot Thal on guitar and Rick Firabracci on bass to round up the lineup. So just incredible instrumental prog music. I'm sure the playing is off the charts. They're all maestros and masters at their instruments, and it should be a really cool thing to check out. The jam sessions and all of the, improvisation and just some great compositions as well. So really cool album to really check out there. Number 5, I saw this star-studded John Wetton memorial concert was announced, featuring all kinds of notable figures in progressive rock, so I felt like I had to at least mention it. Rick Wakeman, Steve Hackett, Jeff Downes, Roger Chapman, Mel Collins, Annie Haslam, Phil Manzanera, Martin Orford, just some of the names that are appearing at this special memorial concert for the late John Wetton, who passed away several years ago. A very legendary progressive rock musician who's been part of several legendary prog bands and is just a really notable figure that everyone loves and who's really contributed so much to the prog community. So it's fitting to have a memorial for him and his contributions. The memorial event, it looks like it's being held at Trading Boundaries in East Sussex on August 3rd for family and friends, and then streamed for the general public. It's going to be hosted by Prog Magazine editor Jerry Ewing alongside Jeff Downes, Steve Hackett, and artist Roger Dean. So a lot going on there. Should be a really cool time. Really a great tribute to an incredible artist. So joining these other artists, just to name drop a few other people: Chris Braid, Jim Cregan, David Cross, Chris Difford, Dave Kilminster, John Mitchell, Guy Pratt, Jay Shellen, Billy Sherwood, Harry Whiteley, Laurie Wisefield, and the Paul Green Rock Academy. So the event will be live streamed, and all proceeds from the tickets will raise money for Macmillan Caring locally. So really cool to see some charity being used there, and it should be a really great event. So definitely wanted to put that out there. And then as a little bonus 6th item, the Flower Kings launched their Some of No Evil reissue, which is the final release in this reissue series that they've been doing. I've been picking them up as they've come along. You can see on the wall behind me, I've got my copy of Some of No Evil, which is probably my favorite Flower Kings record. I love it to death. I was a little disappointed that they're not continuing forward with Banks of Eden and Desolation Rose, but I guess those were already originally out on vinyl, so maybe not any need to reissue those, but still a little bit more difficult to find those, or a copy of those for me who wants to collect all of the vinyl. So maybe I'll splurge a bit and pick those up if I can find them on Discogs or some other site. But been really fun to collect all these vinyls and to hear the little remixes and reissues, and to be able to compare and contrast, and to hear these in their most current and vibrant state. I think Rona Stolt did a great job with these, so definitely want to point attention as a big Flower Kings fanatic. And now moving into the prog singles list, which we mostly talked about all these throughout the course of this episode here. Neal Morse's Overture / Like a Wall from his upcoming project, his big rock opera prog concept album coming out. The Chronicles of Father Robin dropped their single, Elysian Forest, which is a brilliant slice of symphonic prog with folky undertones. Love it. Haken dropped a single, The Last Lullaby, which is the additional track that they had on their Japanese version of their release, which is more of just a coda to the album, a little bit of an electronic instrumental play out at the end of the album, but a really beautiful one that I think is different enough from the rest of the album and really provides an interesting facet to their sound. I have a live track from that upcoming Derek Sherinian Simon Phillips album called Aurora Australis. That should be a really cool track to check out. And then Neal Morse Band released a track from their upcoming live album, Another Story to Tell. Their upcoming live album is an Evening of Innocence and Danger, live in Hamburg, a live recording of their 2022 tour in support of their most recent studio album. So really cool track there, really interesting, and yeah, should be a cool one to check out. And then a bonus single, Molly Baron, something ominous, more in the alternative rock metal side of the equation, a new single from a band that was recently signed to Inside Out. So I think that should be a fun one for those fans of the more heavier side of the progressive spectrum. So a cool smattering of singles there. As for the channel itself, things have been going great. It's been a good, solid week for the channel. I did my review of the new Lars Fredrik Frosli, which is the keyboardist of Wobbler and his solo album. So check out that review. It was a really great one to put together, a really great classic symphonic style sound, and I think it's going to be right in line with any classic prog fan and their tastes. So really, if you haven't checked that out yet, I encourage you to check out the review, and even more so to check out the album, and it's a really fun one. I did a top 5 this week, actually expanded into a top 10 of best modern prog instrumental tracks. I really enjoyed doing that one. It's something I'm passionate about. I'm always excited to talk about modern prog and some of my favorite bands, so please check that video out. I got pretty good reception, so I'm pretty happy with that one and how it did. The last Prog Song Sunday we did Yes's Machine Messiah, which is a great track from Drama from their 1980 album. One of my favorite tracks, one of my favorite underrated Yes albums. I think it's fantastic. So check that one out. This upcoming week we have the next episode in our Classic Albums 101 series with the new, not new, but with talking about Billy Joel's classic album, The Stranger. That was a really fun one to put together. We also do a reaction to one of the classic tracks from that album, so please check that out. Dropping this Sunday. I'm going to do a review of an obscure prog album that I've been just absolutely loving this year that I can't wait to talk about. It's OK Good Nights, The Fox and the Bird, just fantastic, heavy prog album that I've just really adored and I'm excited to talk through. And then I'm going to do a top 5 in line with that review because it's a female-fronted prog band. I'm going to do the top 5 female-fronted progressive rock bands, and I think that should be a fun episode to do this week for the top 5. So a lot of cool stuff happening this week, and following that we've got the 4th of July holiday here in the US, so that should be a fun weekend also. And so a lot of cool stuff coming up on the channel, a lot of reviews, a lot of stuff. To tease something coming up not too far away, I'm going to be doing a big retrospective of the year so far in my own way by basically squeezing in 30 reviews in 30 minutes of albums that I haven't been able to talk yet about on the channel, but really I want to draw attention towards. So if you're looking for great music recommendations, that's going to be a great spot to check that all out. I'll go through them fairly quickly, give you a really short overview of what you can expect, and then let you guys go out and check out the music. So should be a fun time, should be some great episodes coming up. So thank you guys for joining me. Hopefully you're enjoying the music out there, and let me know in the comments any news you came across or any singles you've been listening to, anything in the prog space or music in general. Love to hear your comments, and thank you guys so much for participating and for joining me in the episode. Bye everybody!